important for the service of regular taxpayers. But he said, once I became very wealthy, I wasn't calling up that service line any longer. I have accountants and lawyers who intermediate, and for that, you really need to have proper audit and enforcement. So I want to commend Senator Romney's statement to this committee, and with that, I yield back.
Thank my colleague. It's been good to work with you on all these issues, both here and at the Budget Committee. Senator Carper.
Thanks so much for letting me have a second round. Another follow-up, if I could, Ms. Wang. Do you believe that the role of non-compliant sole proprietors demands more attention from the IRS, particularly when it comes to wealthy taxpayers? And if so, do you have any recommendations for how the IRS should address this?
Yes, it absolutely does. And in fact, it's received so little attention because of the lack of resource of the IRS to understand what's going on that we don't have a great idea of what's going on with high-income tax avoidance using sole proprietorships. But pass-throughs overall, we know, are a really big source of tax avoidance and evasion. And part of the reason is, just like with sole proprietorships, a lot of the income that flows through them, it's really just on the honor system. The IRS doesn't have anything that they can check what the taxpayer says in terms of the source or the amount of income, and compliance rates on that income is less than 50% compared to 99% for W-2 wage and salary income.
All right. More broadly speaking, what steps should this committee and the IRS, for that matter, take to improve the tax compliance of pass-through entities? Does the IRS need additional tools or resources from Congress to support their work in identifying non-compliant wealthy taxpayers?
I think the oversight role that this committee has played in focusing the IRS's attention on partnerships and pass-throughs is really important. But additional tools that lawmakers could give the IRS is, again, the ability to sort of understand who owns what income when it flows through these spider webs of different types of entities. And that could include strengthening the Bipartisan Corporate Transparency Act and allow the IRS to be able to trace who actually owns what. And that's a really basic question that you need to have tax compliance.
Thank you, ma'am. And I don't mean to pick on you, but I do have another question. I'll let these guys catch their breath. But can you share with us how unequal audit enforcement has historically contributed to wealth and racial inequality?
Yeah, well, as audit rates on wealthy filers has plummeted, audits on low and moderate income filers has increased as a share of all filers. And in addition to that, we now know that due to research that the IRS itself put forward, black filers are 2.9 to 4.7 times more likely to be audited by the IRS, even at the same income level. And part of that has come about because there has been an over-focus on forms of non-compliance from refundable credits, even though they contribute a much, much smaller part of the tax gap than non-compliance by wealthy filers.
I'm going to have to move on. Senator
Yeah,
Carper,
thanks so much for giving me the time. And thank you all for being here today and for your good
Thank you
work.
for your good points. Senator Cardin.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I came back first to thank you for holding this hearing. I apologize. I've been busy on Senate Foreign Relations business, but I just really wanted to underscore the importance of the embarrassment in our tax code on the rate of compliance for high-income people and the amount of resources that are put in to audit lower-income taxpayers who in many cases do not have the same degree of help and services to allow them to understand our tax code, which is rather complex. We find that in so many different areas. I chaired a small business committee and found that small business owners, in trying to comply with the requirements we have, don't have the same resources as larger companies. This is a systemic challenge we have in our society. So my question is, we're giving the IRS a great deal of resources. How can we help middle-income taxpayers, lower-income taxpayers, with the type of information, outreach, and services that can make it easier for them to comply with our tax code so that the resources of IRS can be really focused on those that are not paying their fair share of higher income? Ms. Wang, you want to start? I see you're shaking your head the right way, so I'll start with you.
Well, look, you're absolutely right. Low and moderate income filers don't have expensive tax advisors, and they count on lawmakers to provide the IRS the resources so that it can answer the phone in 3 minutes instead of 28 minutes, or to have a taxpayer assistance centre right there in their community where they can go and talk to a real person. And they also count on the IRS, and this comes under the compliance bucket, to put out clear guidance about what their taxes mean. So that's really important.
Well, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would hope that we will put a concentration on how we can help middle and lower income families get the information they need so that they can get the benefits they're entitled to, because in many cases, they're losing out on benefits that they're entitled to, and there's no one there to audit their returns to say you need more money, you should have gotten more. It's always that you made a mistake and therefore we're going after you. And I think with the resources given the IRS, as we go after the higher income taxpayers who are not paying their fair share, we need to devote resources to modest income families to make sure they're being treated fairly in our tax code. I thank the chairman.
Thank my colleague. We also ought to pass the Carbon Tax Preparer Bill in order to beef up work that's done in that area. So I look forward to working with my colleague. Senator Warren from Massachusetts.